one named after the dog?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to that blockbuster new release wall of our memory. We grab a copy off its shelf, we pop it in our VCR, and we see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Michael.
X marks the spot.
And together we're here to help you navigate all those landmines littered down memory lane. Mike, X never marks the spot.
Apparently not.
I have it on good authority.
Right. And why believe in superstitions and mythology, you know?
Yeah.
I guess you have to see it for yourself, maybe in the first two movies, but
Well,
we'll get to that.
After the third tie, that argument wears a little thin.
It does, a little bit.
So, gang, we're getting close to Father's Day, and as you may or may not know, me and Mike do not have our fathers with us anymore, sadly, but we wanted to tackle that father-son element in honor of this holiday in one way, and one of the ways we thought to do that was through a pretty iconic movie that has a pretty significant subplot about the father-son relationship. That, of course, Mike, is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
The last. Hopefully, too bad it wasn't the last Indiana Jones movie.
If it were only true. This is from 1989, way back there, Mike. I got to watch this on the big screen. My wife actually indulged me, and she wanted to actually see this as well. See this glorious 70 millimeter print, Mike, of old school action Hollywood. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I remember seeing it originally when it came out in the theater with my wife. And what was it, 89?
89. Yeah, so let's just jump right in because we're not getting any younger. All right, so this is directed by a guy named Steven Spielberg. Mike, you may have heard of him.
Yeah, okay. We've done, maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his movies.
Every other film we do is a Steven Spielberg movie at some point.
They seem to always come up.
He passed on a couple of movies in order to direct this film. One was Big, and the other one was Rain Man. He decided he wanted to take this one instead of those two juggernauts, Mike. Ended up being the right call here, and I'll get that here in a little bit. It's written by a couple guys we know, Michael. A guy named Jeffrey Baum, who wrote the Lethal Weapon movies, wrote The Lost Boys, which is a podcast that we covered not too long ago. Good one. I encourage all of you to check that one out. Witches of Eastwick, Mike, that's kind of a cool film.
Yeah.
But more importantly, he did the Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. on Fox, starring show favorite
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell.
You know, that show was really good.
Absolutely.
Nobody watched it, unfortunately. But yeah, it was too different. It was too edgy. It was too funny for, the average Fox audience who wanted to see, something stupider.
Yeah, and sadly, it fell victim to like that Fox curse where they debut things on Sunday night. The second NFL game kind of preempts that. So
yeah, it was one of those shows, kind of like Alice or 60 Minutes. You always heard it getting pushed. It was always right after this. But
yeah,
sadly, it was. That's the only way I remember it. Really,
it's kind of hard to establish an audience when you never know when the show's on, or more importantly, it's never on the time it's supposed to be on. But whatever. What do we know, Mike?
What do we know?
Also written by a couple other guys, George Lucas. May have heard of him. He wrote the story. Another guy named Philip Kaufman, who we love. Mike, you may not know it, but we do. He wrote Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That's right.
The good one from the 70s. He wrote The Right Stuff, which is one of, I think, both of our personal favorites as well. Outlaw Josie Wales, which, go on for days about that movie. And The Unbearable Lightness of Being. So he's got some pedigree there, Mike. This had a $48 million budget. And was released, like we said, Mike, May 24th, 1989. So I think before we just go too far ahead, we just get the cast out of the way, Mike, because that's kind of the biggest element of this film. So why don't you knock out that part, Mike?
Oh, we have I don't even know how many Harrison Ford movies we've done so far, but of course you got Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford's second most iconic role. But yeah, and then we have a couple of other recurring characters that we did remember from the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, like Gimli, he's in this movie, John Rhys Davies, and Denham Elliott, the butler from Trading Places. You got to remember him as Brody.
Genius of the restoration.
8-hour resuscitation.
Yeah.
And And then you have, sadly no Karen Allen. I don't. I'm not exactly sure how this movie falls chronologically. It's in the same year as Raiders of the Lost Ark, which Indiana had a very busy year in 1936. Apparently, I don't know what happened to Marion after they lock up the Ark there at the end of the first movie, but
Right.
Hey, what happened?
apparently she's out of the picture by the time he's swimming around the Portuguese coast. But she's not in it. But there's this other lady that's in it. This I don't think she's German, but she's in some other movies. I think she was a James Bond girl. Last name Alison Doody. Yeah, Sean Connery, I was thinking about Sean Connery as he plays Indiana Jones' dad. And this is the fourth Sean Connery movie, and every time we've done a movie with him in it, he's always he's a second banana kind of side character.
Yeah.
But his roles are so different, and it's great when you think about him in Time Bandits and Highlander and The Rock, and then this movie. It's such a great. It's funny to see him. You think of him as a leading man, obviously James Bond, but as these kind of quirky side characters, he's even just adds so much gravitas to the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And as Henry Jones, the dad in this movie, is just great.
Yeah.
And who else? My friend, the evil bad guy, the kind of slimy American who works for the Nazis. A la the guy from the first movie, the French guy, kind of works for the Nazis. He does his heel turn there. I love the little turn around the chair he does. Donovan, so it's you. It's great little. But yeah, he's a great villain. I think he's a villain in a couple other movies. But yeah,
we'll get to that.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, you once you know the core guys, like I say, you got the Sean Connery, Harrison Ford kind of playing off each other, and as their characters, it's just wonderful. And the rest of the cast is just side characters to me. So anyway, that's your cast.
Pretty much. All right. Well, that's a good point, Mike. We just add a little bit to that. Of course, Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, they're only 12 years apart, so they had to make special,
The receding hairline of Sean there kind of helped,
Yeah, they had to use special care to make sure his beard was wide enough. That's why he wore that big floppy hat, of course.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. Should Connery not have agreed to take this, they had a couple of people backed up behind. Those included Gregory Peck, Christopher Plummer, and Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, wow.
I kind of wish that would have...
that would have been interesting.
Yeah. But you talked about the ingenue Alison Doody. She was only 21 when she took this role. This role was considered for Madonna, but she passed on it. We talked about Julian Glover, the guy that played Donovan, the evil villain here. We can remember him also from Star Wars. He was one of the admirals in Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay.
He was the captain that blew up the ice fortress on Hoth with the AT-AT Walker. That was him. Those with the keen eye might also recognize him from Game of Thrones. He was one of the Meisters in one of those families, the one nobody liked.
All of them.
It's funny how Game of Thrones just kind of fell out of the national consciousness. Right? Everybody knew all these characters by heart, and now it's like, what? Who? But there you go. I think special notice should be talked about River Phoenix here, of course. Who
I forgot to mention him
from
from Stand By Me, and sadly passed away too early.
Yeah, we'll get to him here in a little bit, but he was also featured in another podcast we did that nobody listened to, Stand By Me, which I think is a great miscarriage of justice. You guys should go out and listen to that. It's a really good podcast on a really great film. So if you're enjoy what you're here to hear today and you want a little more, go back and listen to Stand By Me. I guarantee you will like it. So we're talking about 1989, Mike, and a bit of a different world back then. In the theaters, of course, before this movie came out, you had Roadhouse, the movie we covered for better or worse. You also had some highbrow talent. Earth Girls Are Easy. This movie came out unopposed on a Friday afternoon by itself on May 24th. Wow. The following weekend, you had Dead Poets Society.
It's like all these grade Z and B movies scatter like rats. It's like, oh, here comes an Indiana Jones movie. Get the hell out of here.
It's like Yeah, grown-ups are talking. Leave now.
Yeah.
And then he had Star Trek 4. And then the week after that, of course, you had Batman, Mike. And then that was it for the rest of the year. That movie, Batman, ended up being the number one film that year, followed closely by the movie we're going to cover, Indiana Jones. The third biggest movie that year was Lethal Weapon 2. And look who's talking.
No.
I think we have to cover that one, Mike, don't you think?
Yeah. It's funny because, I think it resurrected John Travolta's career. And
yeah, it's going to hurt.
It's
gonna hurt a lot.
As long as it's not Look Who's Talking 2 if Roseanne Barr in there. I think that would be tough. I can do the first one.
Okay. And speaking of prestige pictures, Rain Man came out later that fall, won Best Pictures. That was the film scene in 1989. Because of the Nostalgia podcast, we like to cover all elements of pop culture, so we'll talk about music a little bit. On the charts the week this movie came out, Mike, is a real potpourri of crap. You had Forever Your Girl by Paula Abdul. You had single-handedly my least favorite song of all time, Rock On by Michael Damian.
Oh, yeah. It's like, what? He remade it, but it sounds just like the David Essex version. It's very annoying.
All I can see is, like, Corey Feldman singing it.
Yeah.
That's soiled, if you will. Not good. Donny Osmond reminded us that he was a soldier of love, Mike. That was the number 3 song. Yeah, he was a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll. Like, he was the rock and roll half, as you recall. So,
and all just sickening sweet, like the Osmond brothers.
Yeah,
you know what? It's funny because like you hear like 10 times the amount of the Jackson 5 songs here, Osmond brothers, and there's a reason for that. Any song of the Osmonds you hear just not age well, and they're just awful. It's just like sickening sweet, just sugary pop that's just awful. But I digress.
You do. You digress quite a bit. Thankfully. The number 4 song was Voices of Babylon by The Outfield, which is a band that we just talk about all the time, but we're not really sure what they sound like. And of course you had the number 5 song was The Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler.
You're everything I would like to be.
You can fly higher than an eagle. 'Cause I am the wind beneath my wings.
Did you ever know you're my hero?
Is that a rhetorical question, Mike?
Did Beaches come out in '89 too? Is that because
it's somewhere around there? I know.
Okay. It was a big one.
I think it was a year or two previous, but
Yeah.
Have you seen Beaches, Mike? Just you can tell me. We're friends.
No, it's in the same reservoir. I keep movies like Terms of Endearment and Pritzi's Honor. They're all kind of that's just. Fried Green Tomatoes. It's none of those movies. It's just there.
Yeah, I actually had to see that. Of course, there was a woman involved, Mike, and that's all I'm going to say.
Right. I understand. Say no more.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned at beaches, and I found that out the hard way. Some other stuff going on in 1989, Mike. We were paying $1 a gallon for gas, so that was pretty cool. Stamps cost us a quarter, whatever those were. On the video games field, Mike, we were playing Super Mario Land, Castlevania, Sim City, and Minesweeper. From the Windows 3.1 installment, Mike. We all learned how to play Minesweeper.
I feel like I was a professional Minesweeper player because I played a lot at work and got paid while I was sitting there.
Well, they're not going to sweep themselves, Mike.
Nope.
And this is the year that the Dalai Lama won the Nobel Peace Prize, Mike.
What? I don't even have the energy. Big hitter,
Lama. So speaking of big hits, Mike, this was one of the biggest ones of the summer, biggest ones of the year. It was coming off the rebound of a not so successful Temple of Doom remake, which is one that I was a big fan of. So, but this came in and just hit the ground running in May, and just kind of presented itself as a staple in the box office for most of the summer. And we'll get to the awards and accolades here in a little bit, in the short run. But Mike, what do you say we get started? You ready to go?
Yes, sir. Let's light this candle.
Hit that button, will you?
It's a lot of petroleum down here, Justin.
Hey, just think well down there. Get retired, Mike. So our movie opens up in 1918 in the Utah desert, and we get to introduce the young Boy Scout expedition. They all got their own horses, Mike, which is pretty good for 1918.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and one of those scouts includes a young Indiana Jones, and it's played famously by River Phoenix.
You know, they should make a TV show about
the young Indiana Jones Chronicles. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Usually I don't tolerate or suffer such fan service and origin story stuff, but I thought it was really, really, really clever the way they did this here, and we'll get to that here as we go. So River Phoenix, who was chosen by Harrison Ford to play himself after they had worked together on Mosquito Coast and developed an acting relationship. And in hindsight, it makes perfect sense. But they're on this little expedition, and they're out there kind of exploring and with this portly scout friend. And they start Herman. They start wandering into the caves, and they see a fedored explorer, not too unsimilar to Indiana Jones here, with his gang of villains. They're kind of raiding this burial site, and they pull out the Cross of Coronado, Mike. And of course, young Indiana Jones is looking over their shoulders. He's angry because he knows, given his history with archaeology, this belongs to the museum. So he makes it his duty to try to disrupt this. So he goes down and steals it and takes off. And then, the gang catches him. And it leaves this really thrilling kind of set piece to open up the movie where, he's running on horseback and he jumps onto a train, a circus train, Mike.
Of course.
Yeah. And the guys are chasing him in tow, and he gets up on top of the trains, and there's this thrilling chase, and ducks down into a car, falls into a vat of snakes, Mike. It was interesting because he established that snakes weren't scary to him previously. And then,
yes.
So we all know this. Indiana Jones has this.
There's a lot of these origin story kind of things. Yeah.
Extremely clever. So he falls into this. He gets overwhelmed by snakes and just has this freak out. And then on his way out, he kind of runs into a lion's cage. And he's kind of cornered. He's got no way out, but he sees a whip hanging on the wall, and he cracks it a couple times and cuts his chin. Mike, I thought that was interesting because Harrison Ford's got that iconic scar on his chin, and it's very clever. I mean, they
killed three. You got three origins like
just knocked right out. Yeah, yep. Bang, bang, bang. But he heads home to Dad to show him what he's done, and we don't see Indiana's father here. We just see him, at his desk quietly, researching his academia, and he tells him to calm down, slow down. And unfortunately, the cops show up as he's doing that with the gang of thieves and bandits, and turns out that they reported it stolen from them, and he has to give it up. And he gives the cross to the guy in the fedora, and he looks down and says, you got beat today, kid, but doesn't mean you have to like it. And he speaks exactly like as if, the later Indiana Jones would speak. And he puts the fedora on his head, Mike, and, he looks up, and then we do that time jump later, and he's on the ship getting beat up by the same, cast of characters that, stole the cross in the first place, and he blows it up. And just a great, thrilling little set piece just to introduce the movie. It's like, 7 or 8 minutes, and you just get this whole little origin story explained and really kind of set the tone for the movie. I thought it was very clever.
Yeah, it was. I just don't know why Indiana University is, funding a trip to the Portuguese coast to find a, gold cross, and, how they end up with such a priceless artifact in their collection of Spanish antiquities. I had a little problem with, but I'm looking a little too deep. So
all right, well, let's get into it a little bit. So we're in 1938 here now, Mike, and
36. That's what I was saying.
36.
1936 was a very busy year for Indiana.
Yeah. So he's teaching his class and talking about the common misconceptions of archaeology that all get kind of proved wrong later in the film. And of course, he's a very popular guy with the ladies, Mike, and a lot of people want to see him after class, so he ducks into his office, and he gets a little package from his assistant, marked from Venice, and he doesn't know what that is. He just throws it in his pocket, and in order to evade any responsibility as a professor, he just ducks out the door. And as he's doing that, he kind of gets, air quotes, kidnapped by a couple guys in suits, ask him to get in a car, and he's delivered to our friend here. His name is Walter Donovan. He's the rich American who donates a lot of money to the university. And he explains to him that
he's a very vague villain.
You're
thinking, he's this great benefactor to these museums and antiquity collector, but he's just apparently and living the high life, and is a very rich guy, and but he decides to work with the Nazis.
Of course he does. Nazi sympathizers are fantastic for these franchises, so we'll get to that here as we go. But, and he shows Indiana Jones that he's got this tablet that's got some of the original markings of where they propose the location of the Holy Grail is, Mike. And they're missing a good chunk of it, but he informs Dr. Jones that there's an expedition en route now to actually unveil the Holy Grail. And unfortunately, the team leader, Mike, has gone missing, and he explains to him and reveals to him that the team leader, of course, is his father.
Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah, bum. So he leaves, and he decides to take Marcus Brody along with him this time, Mike. So we got a little comic relief thrown in there, just in case you needed some.
Just in case we needed more comedy. We got Denham Elliott along for the ride, yeah.
So this Walter Donovan guy says that he's arranged for them to meet Dr. Schneider in Venice, of all places. So we do the transition scene, which I love, Mike, with the red line on the map.
That had to be brought. Another member berry had to be dropped in.
Just love that. So they fly to Venice, and they get in, and of course it's gorgeous, and they're met at the dock by not some crusty old archaeologist, but actually this stunning blonde German named Elsa. That's her name, Schneider. And she meets
Schneider.
She meets them at the what do they call those? Not gazebos. What are the
gondolas?
Gondolas. Thank you.
Yeah, it's they do the motorboat down the Grand Canal, so they were coming off there. Yeah.
So she meets them right off the gondola, and explains to them what they're up against. And the first step, of course, they want to go to the library to get some more research. And as they go, the library is closing, and they start to put some pieces together based on some of Dr. Jones's drawings, and they see that the stained glass windows of the church are actually replicas of that. And they figured, Jones makes the revelation that the clue to where the location of the Grail is actually in the library, physically down there, Mike. So there's this great scene where there's this big X marked on the tile on the floor. And he gets up on the trellis. He says X marks the spot, of course, to contradict his earlier statement, which is great. And then he just casually grabs a banister and starts smacking the tile. I'm pretty sure you can't break, 8-inch Italian marble like that, but
not the travertine kind like they were doing. But hey,
whatever.
I'm not going to quibble.
So he breaks the tile, opens up the center of the X, and there's a little passageway down there, Mike. The catacombs, which I thought was clever because I don't think there's any tunnels in Venice. That's why it's underwater. The whole city's underwater, right? But
there's not too many basements in Venice. If you actually go there, you don't really see catacombs.
Yeah, it's a floating city there, guys. But whatever, it made for a cool effect. So he takes also down there with all the rats. And as they're down there, this mysterious group of magi, right? Just like in the Mummy. They're all wearing their fezzes, and they don't know. We don't know why they're following them yet, but they suddenly all the liquid down there's petrol, and they light them on fire.
Why is that? Why? How?
There's no physical logic to that scene whatsoever.
I never thought of Italy as being like Texas or like there's oil down there.
Oil, that is black gold, Texas tea.
It's like petroleum. What is that? I don't.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused. I don't know how do that many rats survive in all that petroleum?
I don't know. How could they look underwater and open their eyes and look around? That was
lighting a torch would be a little bit scary to do too.
I want to rethink that method too.
I mean, if just a piece of that fragment of that bandage or that wrap falls in the. Hey, what do I know? I'm being too.
So.
I gotta relax.
So the whole thing goes up, but not before he managed to get an etching of they find the.
It had to be on waterproof paper. It had to be in some kind of vellum or some kind of plastic. There's no way that could have survived the little oil water swim they had to take.
Yeah, so they find the shield of a Crusade knight from the Crusade that's got the original markings that were in Donovan's office, and he makes an etch of the missing components, and just like that, they've got the location to the Holy Grail. Of course, it turns out it's somewhere around Alexandretta.
Alexandretta, of course. On the Pilgrim Trail from Eastern Empire.
Alexandretta, yes.
Yeah.
Whatever remains of it. In the Crescent Canyon Yeah.
Yeah. So as they're leaving, those Magi guys go after him again. There's this thrilling scene where the boat race.
It was taken straight from Moonraker, by the way.
That's true. Yeah. But there's this fun boat chase where they're getting shot at and trying to get killed, and at the end it's down to the last guy, this guy named Kazim, and he's threatened just to die with this information, but Jones pulls him out, and for a quid pro quo, he saves Kazim's life because Kazim knows the location of Dr. Jones. And he says, well, why are you trying to kill me? He goes, it turns out that these guys are actually guardians of the Grail, which was kind of cool, the folklore there. Yeah. And they're there to protect people like Indiana Jones from finding the Grail. I thought the line was great. He says, for whose glory do you seek the Grail? His or yours? I thought that was a great line. Mm-hmm. Interesting thing about the guy that played Kazim, he was originally cast to be Sala.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, instead of John Rhys Davies, but they were so impressed with him that they brought him back for this role later, which is kind of cool. So we now found out that Dr. Jones Sr. is in Germany, so they load up the truck and they moved to Bavaria at this point. and of course, the giant castle, Mike, right?
Of course, yes.
So just to cut through some of the detail, they actually go there and they find Dr. Jones, of course, being held in a little room, and the dynamic between Indy and his father is established pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
He calls him Junior. We'll get to that here in a little bit. It's amazing because Dr. Jones here, he's this, this Errol Flynn scoundrel type, but the minute his father yells at him, he goes, yes, sir. Just speaks to that dynamic you have with your dad. It doesn't matter how tough you are, your dad can always kick your ass,
Like I said, it's the scene I was waiting for, to see again, was just the interaction between those two.
So they had this consultation about the diary, and of course he reveals that he brought the diary with him, and that really sets Connery off the rails because he mailed it to him to get rid of it. And he brought it right back to the Nazis. So
I should have mailed it to the Marx brother. Well, you
again, doesn't matter how cool you think you are, your dad can still put you in your place. There's several little set pieces here of them fighting with the Nazis, trying to escape from the castle, Mike, which I thought were fun. The revolving door in the fireplace scene, that's always great. There's a scene,
it's like a Three Stooges thing.
Yeah, there's a scene where they're tied together back to back in the chair, and Connery Sr. sets the floor on fire. Just comically, just silly, but just fun. They get cornered by the Nazis, and they take young Elsa at gunpoint and say, hand over the diary, or when to shoot her. And Connery says, yeah, go ahead. And then, Indiana Jones says, what are you talking about? And he knows for some reason that she's done a heel turn here, but Indiana Jones didn't figure it out. He says the line, how do you know this, Dad? He goes, well, she talks in her sleep.
Yeah.
That was an ad-libbed line, and that was like the third take because the first time he said it, everybody cracked up from its ingenuity and originality. But so turns out they're Eskimo brothers, Mike. But it turns out, Elsa does the heel turn, and they get the diary and lead the Jones to their fate. Of course, he's Indiana Jones. You can't keep him, contained for long. They just kind of escape the castle, get on a Zeppelin, Mike. Remember that? There's a big set piece there where...
He actually pauses for a minute so the dad and, the son can kind of talk again and have a moment. And then back to the action, it's just like So they turn the Zeppelin around and head back to Germany, so they decide to bail out. There's a conveniently placed biplane underneath the Zeppelin that they board and kind of crash land in. But from this point, the chase is on. So the Nazis are after him, and it's just a race to get to the Grail. And Sala comes back here because they gave the book to Brody, and he gets lost in Marrakesh again. and Sala goes there to help him, which quickly gets him kidnapped as well. So the Germans have Dr. Jones at this point. Dr. Jones and Brody in a tank crossing the desert, headed to Alexandretta. And that kind of culminates in the big set piece, the action scene here at the end, Mike, where very similar to the first movie. There's this high-speed desert chase. Indiana Jones taking out a tank. That scene where he's hanging by his bag from the gun barrel. That's actually Harrison Ford doing that stunt. Yeah,
he did a lot of his own stunts there.
Yeah, he did. I remember in the first movie him doing going under the truck and stuff, and doing a little bit of that. But they did use a stuntman. But he's got it. There's no way you could fake some of these. You can't put them. You can't put a wig or a hat on another guy and make it look right without it.
Absolutely. There's a death count of 50 here. More than about 90% of those are in this scene here, but they're all Nazis, so it doesn't matter, Mike.
No, they don't matter at all.
It culminates with them getting the book and, the Nazi guys driving over the cliff in the tank. So they decide to go get the girl themselves, and as they're there, they come across the Nazi sympathizer Donovan and a couple of other Nazis there that are trying to make their way to the catacombs to get the Grail. And they're volunteering people through, and they're all getting, there's 3 challenges that are written in Jones's diary that he knows about, but the Germans don't. And they keep taking volunteers, and, severed heads keep rolling back out. So they capture Jones and tell him, we need you to go in there and get the Grail. He says, well, I'm not going to do it. And then Donovan shoots Connery. Gut shot too, Mike. Not cool.
Yes.
So in order, the Grail has life-saving properties, so in order to save his father, Jones is kind of stuck having to go in there. And there's 3 kind of booty traps, Mike, he's got to get past.
Booby traps? Oh, yes.
The first one, he has to kneel before God, and he realizes that he has to take a knee as this rotating saw blade misses over his head.
The technology they had, in the 11th or 12th century is amazing.
Yeah. The second one is he has to walk in the path of God, and there's a stone floor with all letters on the bottom. He figures out he has to spell out the name Jehovah, and he has a bit of a spelling error there at first, but he figures that out. And the last one was really cool. He has to take the leap of faith. He comes into a ravine where it seems like it's impassable. So, the hardcore scientist actually churches up and makes this leap of faith, and it turns out this is huge optical illusion. There's this plank that bridges the gap that no one sees, which is fantastic. I thought the way they moved the camera around to show that was really cool.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And that one I could believe, That was good.
So he makes his way into the little chamber where the Grail is, and Mike, there's a really, really old knight that's in there. Over 700 years old.
He's an old guy.
I'm an old man. I'm confused.
Yeah, because the rub here is that the Grail offers everlasting life, but only in the seal around this valley. You can't take anything. Doesn't have any effect out of it. So we don't know that till the end. But so Donovan and Elsa come in tow behind them now that the path has been cleared. And part of the deal is when you're in there, you have to choose the Grail. And they've got like 45 cups in the room. This is a very classic, iconic scene too. And Elsa, sensing that she's on the wrong side of history, gives Donovan some really bad advice and says, here, this is the Grail. And he has to go get some water and take a drink out of it, Mike. And as he drinks the water, he has some rapid aging, Mike.
It reminded me of Merlin's Shop of Wonders.
The irony here is that, God is an evil God sometimes, and he has to have this horrible death. He could just die instantly, but no, he has to get really old and then
turn to dust,
get really long hair and turn to dust.
Yeah.
But then they realize that the actual Grail is probably far less extravagant. It's just a simple little cup of a carpenter, and Jones takes a drink and he survives. He did not choose poorly, Mike.
How did Donovan not know that? He seemed like a very intelligent, guy who knew a lot about antiquities. And
yeah, I know.
Why would he? I don't know.
I'm not a historian. I have no idea what it looks like. Which one is it?
I would not trust a 21-year-old Nazi. I put a lot of faith in her. I'm just saying.
Well,
she already slept with both Joneses, so
sometimes if you got a lot of money, people think you're smart.
Maybe.
Just open up a U.S. newspaper, you'll figure out all about that. So there you go. But anyway, they exit. Of course, every time a movie like this ends, there's got to be some sort of earthquake or volcano, Mike. And so the Crescent Moon Valley is starting to implode, and they run off with some water from the Grail. They pour it on Connery's wound. He takes a drink, and he gets to look upon the Grail, which is the focus of his life's work, and he's amazed by it. And then the ground opens up, Mike, and the Grail falls into the shelf on this ravine, and Elsa goes for it, blinded by greed or whatever. And he tries to grab her, and she reaches for the Grail as opposed to getting help from him. So she falls to her death. So,
no.
rest in peace, Elsa. Then he goes to try to grab it, and then Connery grabs him and says, let it go. He pulls him back up. All the evil Nazis are dead. They found the Grail. Connery has kind of had that last puzzle piece put in his life story, so he's happy. And there you go. And they all kind of ride off into the sunset.
They literally ride into the sunset.
They literally ride off, which is a phenomenal ending. The irony here is that Denham Elliott comically plays off like he can't ride a horse, but in real life, Denham Elliott was like a trained horseman.
Yeah,
just fantastic rider. But they ride off into the sunset, and I was thinking, if this was only the end of this series, I kept thinking about, I wish it ended here. I wish this was the last thing on film for Indiana Jones, given the later sequels. Michael will eviscerate those here in a little bit. But you get the silhouette of them riding off in the sweeping score, again, from John Williams, and that's your movie, Mike. So let's talk awards and accolades real quick here, Mike. So this had a $29 million opening, so this was boffo big. Had a domestic haul of $197 million and did $474 million on a worldwide scale.
Wow.
It was in the top 10 all time until a dumb little movie called Twister came and knocked it out. It knocked it out of that top 10 several years later. Twister, our first podcast we covered ever. So there you go. It got nominated for 3 Oscars. It won one of them for sound effects editing. Also nominated for sound and score. Oddly enough, Mike, they lost score to The Little Mermaid. Not even
you can't beat Under the Sea. I mean, come on.
That's true. Connery got a Golden Globe nomination for his supporting role here, his Dr. Jones Sr., but he did not win. But there you go. It just as recently as this year got ranked as the 119th film of the top 250 of all time. But all in all, just a great film. It was a bit of a comeback for Spielberg and Harrison Ford. Their last couple efforts had not been very popular. Spielberg with the film Always and Harrison Ford with the movie Frantic were not big hits commercially or critically. So this kind of put them back on top of the game. So let's talk about our game, Mike. Let's talk about what it meant to your host of Grumpy Nostalgia. We're going through the Grumpy Meter. This is kind of the premise of the podcast where we talk about a film we saw as younger film goers, then we watch it again as grumpy old jerks and see how our perceptions change. So Mike, why don't you do that very thing? Talk about your first watch and then your take on it as your most recent watch.
I never, I've heard you say it before in some of these podcasts calling us grumpy old jerks, but I didn't feel it more than I ever have for this movie because I really liked it when I saw it, when I was 18 years old in the theater.
Yeah.
And, it was funny because I didn't like the second one, the Temple of Doom. I thought that was really silly.
No, I kind of actually disliked that, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that, but they had some of the silliness in this movie too. But it was, I think, the fact that it did have a lot of the same elements from the first movie. I liked it a lot. Fast forward, 36 years, and like I said, I had the same feeling after watching this that I did after watching like a Roger Moore James Bond movie.
Yeah,
it already felt campy. It already felt like they were making fun of the first movie in a way. There was a lot of, like I said, a lot of the elements that were in there were kind of rehashed, recapped, nostalgic bait, if you will, before that became popular. And I didn't realize until I watched it, today. I was like, oh yeah, they're poking fun at that. All the Ark, that movie. And just a little bit of that. And it seems sillier. The first movie had, obviously it's a comic adventure movie in a way, but it seemed more serious. You had a little bit more emotion in it than this movie did.
Yeah.
There was a lot of one-liners in this and a lot of kind of, almost like winking at the camera kind of feeling to it. I love the dynamic between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford as, the two Joneses in this, and it was
best part of this movie, even better than the main story. Yeah,
that's the story. And that's the thing. The story, to me at least, was a background. Like I said, there was so much that seemed so familiar from the first movie to me after watching it again that it's hard to get involved in it. As much as a serious movie, you're like, there goes that Nazi guy is gonna make a funny face right before his plane explodes coming out of the tunnel. And it's just, it had so much conveniences with the boats always being available and just everything was just everything was convenient. And, I know that's part of the venture of it, and it's good. It's a good story to kind of follow as a quest and it is really well done for that purpose. But for me, it was just so much nostalgia. It made me want to watch the first movie again. It's like this has been covered. Oh, that looks similar. And even having the Nazis searching for a treasure that is mythical again. It's like, oh, okay, yeah,
right.
So a lot of it for that was just, I don't know. Like I said, it was still on its surface good, and the father-son dynamic was, for me, the best part.
Okay, Mike. Well, I'm not too far from that. I saw this in the theater on summer break and just really enjoyed it. It was weird. Again, we talked about this before. You didn't have that social media presence and internet and all that, so I didn't know this movie was a thing until I was looking through the newspapers. Hey, there's another Indiana Jones movie. I just kind of missed the ball on that because I was in school and I wasn't paying attention to TV and things like that. So I just didn't know about it, and it was something I got to watch over the summer holiday. I just really liked it because, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of Temple of Doom for some reason, and I thought
Capshaw probably.
I think that's probably what it was, but I think it's kind of bounced back good, and it's such a rebound that I just really enjoyed it. I thought what the comments you made about it were interesting, Mike, about the fan service. Remember, we live in a time where every intellectual property in Hollywood has to be a trilogy now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that prevalent back then. And I think if you just look at this in a vacuum, they probably did all that fan service because they knew this was going to be the last time they got to visit these characters, And, I think we can be dragging some stuff that happened after this film and applying it to it. But the two movies that came out after this were not very impressive. And maybe when you go back and look at it through that filter, that kind of fan service and those member bears they tossed up could potentially be misconstrued, I think. But back then, they were probably saying goodbye to the franchise. They're probably having a little fun with it. They're just trying to relax, a little laid back. But I kind of liked all that. Connery makes the film for me. Just that proper English gentleman in these situations, just, half comical, half Jar Jar Binks, half learned, confidant. I thought that was really great. This is the mentorship he could probably establish that he had for Jones. I just liked all that. No wig here, Mike, which is good.
I missed it. But like you said, they had to make him look a good deal older than he really was.
But just that scowl he gives Harrison Ford when Harrison Ford kills all those Nazis on the motorcycle, and he's laughing about it. He looks over at his dad, and his dad just giving that unimpressed, unapproving look. It's just great.
Uh-huh.
You can't. That's not in the script. That's just those actors kind of playing off each other. Just so, I really liked it. Probably a 4 out of 5 the first time I saw it, and I think I'm probably went up a little bit 4 out of 5 because just the father-son dynamic. Of course, in our current situation, just means a little more now, and I just realized how fun that was. It was interesting because I used to show movies at my house quite a bit. I mean, you used to come to quite a few times.
Yeah.
My grandmother, when she was still alive, came to visit me, and we watched this movie with my dad. And it was one of her favorite movies. She loved it, and it was all about Sean Connery being silly. Because she was British, and just his behavior and his accent and his she just it was one of those. It just had a double nostalgia impact for me in terms of that dynamic too as my dad's mother, and it was just kind of a neat little thing to have her see that and enjoy it too. So we talked enough about the father-son dynamic here and how much we felt this was probably the driving force of the movie, and we thought me and Mike's fathers probably had a good, well, not probably, had a lot of contributing factors on how our formative years and what the way it shaped us, and a lot of that had to do with cinema and a lot of film. I mean, I became a film fan because my dad was a movie lover, and I think Mike can probably say the same thing. So
for sure.
So for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Bell, we thought we'd use the opportunity to have a little homage to our fathers and talk about our dad's favorite movies, Mike. So let's cover 3. We could probably do 50, but let's cover the 3 biggest ones we can remember, and then we'll go from there. So, Mike, why don't you head us off?
All right. My dad was sadly passed away about 7 years ago, but he was born in that era, like right after World War II, or right during World War II, and obviously didn't get to serve there, and he was born, in that weird time where he wasn't in the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or World War II, but he had all his relatives. His dad was, in the Pacific Theater in Guadalcanal, as a Marine, so all he heard was the war stories about, and so he really got big into watching war movies, and World War II movies specifically. So I could probably populate my whole list with just World War II stuff, but I'll mix it up a little bit. His favorite World War II movie was The Longest Day, which was came out in 1962, but it starred all the biggest actors of the time. You name them, they were in it, like John Wayne, Richard Burton, Henry Fonda, Robert Mitchum. It even had Red Buttons in it, and Sean Connery. They had kind of a mix of English and American actors in it, and it was following D-Day in June 6, 1944, and they call it The Longest Day because it focused on different units. It even focused on like the German side and how the Germans were preparing but weren't prepared for this invasion. And it's a great movie. It's like a 3-hour long thing, but you had to be focusing on so many different things. You have the parachuters going in. You obviously had the Omaha Beach invasion, and it's an epic movie, and it's sanitizing. It's funny if you watch that movie and then watch something like Saving Private Ryan.
Ironically, Spielberg had to go with that too.
Yeah, and you have a totally different view of what war was like. It's romanticized in a way, but it's nitty gritty. It does focus. There's hardly any women in it, so it's a true guys war movie. So it was one of my dad's favorites. So that was The Longest Day from 1962.
Yeah, kind of spooky as time we're recording this. It of course is June 6th.
Yeah, exactly.
Appropriate. All right, so my dad was kind of the same demographic. He was born in late 40, like 49. So his involvement with military is really about just not getting put in Vietnam, right? So, so he was that generation that was anti-war, all that kind of thing. So that led to that kind of dynamic for him. And I think his first movie is really the result of that. And that was MASH, the original MASH from 1970, before the TV show and all that. But Donald Sutherland and Robert Duvall and Sally Kellerman. just a fantastic movie. Robert Altman directed it. It's kind of hard to understand, and even it's not probably very palatable to a modern audience because it's very kind of nonlinear. There's a lot of crosstalk. There's not a real, it's just like a slice of life type thing. What the environment was in that situation, but anti-establishment doctors and things like that. And it was just a neat little film. And I watched it a few years back, and I was impressed with it. But it's probably an acquired taste for a lot of folks. But my dad loved it, and it was one of those things where I got introduced to that kind of Altman style cinema from him too. So that's my first pick, MASH from 1970.
Yeah, it's funny watching that and seeing the only character from that carried on to the TV show was Gary Berghoff, but the Robert Duvall Major Burns character is so changed. I guess the tone of the movie is a little bit more serious, but it's a good pick. Let's see, my second pick will be another war movie, but it's not a World War II movie. It's a Vietnam movie. And it was one my dad took me to when I was 15, and it was big for me because he did not take me to movies. Like, we would go as a family, obviously, to see E.T. and another Spielberg movie. But the big feature, the big blockbusters we would go see, obviously. But for him to take me by myself to go see a rated R war movie was like, wow, this is big. It was like the first. It was like the grand opening of the 6th Theater Cineplex they had here in town. So it was a really big deal. But we went to go see Platoon, and Oliver Stone movie from 1986. And everybody should know what Platoon is. It shows you the worst side of the war there in Vietnam, and probably a very realistic portrayal in some ways. But it has the cast makes the movie. So early William Dafoe, you have Charlie Sheen as the young man who's, kind of disillusioned as the movie goes on during it, and Johnny Depp's in it, or one of our favorite, Keith David's in it, and a whole list of, famous actors in it. But it was, like I said, it was another nitty-gritty kind of movie. It's so much different than the romantic portrayal you would see in The Longest Day, but it is like I said, I would say a 90% realistic depiction of what the Vietnam War was like. And again, it was a fantastic movie. don't remember if it won Best Picture or not, but it should have. It was just so
it
well
did.
done. Okay, good. Yeah, it was a fantastic movie, and like I said, what I remember the most is like seeing it with my dad there at the theater, and
Yeah.
I thought, well, this movie must be good, Now here I am, a 15-year-old watching a rated R movie, and I was like, well, I can watch it because my dad took me. But yeah, it was really good. So that's my second pick.
That's interesting because you've rattled off a couple movies, Platoon and Saving Private Ryan. I watched those movies once and I enjoyed them, but I can categorically say I will never watch them again.
I can't watch that first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. It's amazingly good.
I mean, I'm aggravated by it. I'm aggravated by it because those are great films, but I just the way they dealt with the subject matter was such a way that I was like, I could, you
almost feel like you're going to get PTSD just secondhand watching it. Like wow, what these guys went through.
Yeah, those are great picks. All right, so the next pick on here is a little bit lighter in tone, but we talked about this a little bit when we covered this one on our podcast. But Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a great one.
Oh yeah,
my dad loved. He saw this in the theater, I believe. Did not take us. I think it was the mom and dad date night. He didn't disclose that he went, but he did allow us to watch it at home on the ABC Sunday Night Movie. And I remember just being very scared by it, especially the scene where the aliens come down and steal Barry, and he her house in the middle of Indiana, all the lights go red, and he opens up the door, and all the wind's blowing. I remember that scaring the crap out of me.
It's gone.
But I also remember coming around and like feeling the wonder, the sense of wonder, and the imagination, and all that stuff that that movie brought to the table, and how it kind of defied modern tropes of like alien films where it looked at the other way around, like look at as if aliens were looking for peace and curious, and just this sense of wonderment they had, and just I think about that. My dad, when I think about that movie a lot, because it was just something that he just kind of showcased to me and shared those things with the same tones in mind to tell me that this is an option, and this is what science can be, and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate him bringing that movie into my life, at least. So that's my second one, Close Encounters. So Mike, let's do your last pick and maybe a couple honorable mentions if you had any scattered around in your list there.
Yeah, let me throw a couple more World War II movies at you. One of my dad's favorite movies was Midway, the Battle of Midway from 1976.
Yeah.
Which, again, it had one of his all-star casts. It had Henry Fonda in it again, and Robert Mitchum, and Tom Selleck. Can you believe he was in that movie?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, wow.
And Sam from Quincy. He was in there, too.
Was he murdered?
He was murdered. Sam. But yeah, it did portray, the Japanese side and the American. If you don't know about Midway, it was an absolute just slam dunk defeat for the Japanese. They lost like 4 carriers, a couple battleships, but the ships never met in battle. It was all the planes attacking the ships, and it was and it's another one of those long epic movies with the big cast, and one of his favorites. Flying Leathernecks, famous John Wayne movie about Leathernecks, Marines. They were flying, I think Corsairs, I want to say, and
not Roughnecks?
Maybe Avengers. No. Why did I think of? I thought of Owen Wilson instantly.
Wrong movies.
But I want to turn my attention to another genre he liked, and it was westerns. One of his favorite westerns was Magnificent Seven, which was who doesn't know the theme song to that movie if you're a guy, and you got to be older than 40. But his favorite western was a movie called High Noon, which came out in 1952, and it was Gary Cooper, and it's a classic tale, like the classic western kind of tale where Gary Cooper. It starts off with him getting married to Grace Kelly, of all people in the movie, and he's a
look at the names you're tossing out here. My God,
he's a sheriff in like a small New Mexico town, and everybody is like, you're going off your honeymoon because there's a killer that's coming to get his revenge on you, and he's coming on the noon train, and everybody's like, oh no, what are you gonna do, Gary? And it's funny because he goes for help. He's like, Lloyd Bridges is in it, and he's kind of a coward, and he scurries away. Colonel Potter from MASH, Harry Morgan's in this movie. He scurries away.
Horse hockey.
He can't find anybody to help him fight these guys who come on the train. It's not only the guy, but his whole gang is coming onto the train at noon.
Yeah.
And he has this battle in himself. And his wife is just wanting him to leave. Just go. You don't have to do this. And it's all about finding that courage to face these men on his own. And it's a fantastic movie. The best thing about it is the song that constantly plays in the movie. The "Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling." The song.
Oh yeah.
It's like this Western song.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't think the movie won Best for Picture, but I know Gary Cooper won Best Actor because it's an incredible, like, piece of acting. And I remember, my dad and I watched this movie at least 5 or 6 times, and, it was just a phenomenal movie. But that's High Noon from 1952.
Wow. Kind of like Tombstone. Sorry.
I won't be your Huckleberry for that one.
All right, okay. Those are all great films, Mike. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up here with a couple of honorable mentions. My dad was, I talked about this several times on the podcast for those that may have not listened before, but he was really big into, comedies, especially from the golden eras like 1930s and 40s. So my lifelong love affair with the Marx Brothers was from a movie my dad loved, which is The Night at the Opera, which is kind of, I think the quintessential Marx Brothers movie. I think it's just a perfect little piece of written film. It's a musical at its core, but there's so much classic comedy and so many classic lines in this film.
Ladies and gentlemen, I guess that takes in most of you. This is the opening of a new opera season, a season made possible by the generous checks of Mrs. Claypool. I am sure the familiar strains of Verdi's music will come back to you tonight, and Mrs. Claypool's checks will probably come back in the morning.
Just perfectly structured film, just hilarious. I've probably seen it 50 times in my lifetime. But this is something my dad imprinted on me very early, those opportunities to stay up late on late night TV and watch this whenever it would come around, which is fantastic. And you didn't have VCRs back then, so when this movie came on, it was appointment TV to do it. Which leads me to my second honorable mention, which was the reason we bought a VCR. We could finally afford one. They were finally available, really, Mike. And he had learned that the Yankee Doodle Dandy from 1942 was going to be on at like 2 a.m. And he got fed up with not being able to see these films, so we went out and bought a VCR so he could record Yankee Doodle Dandy and watch it at his leisure. And of course, sadly, we didn't figure out how to program the VCR right. Never did get to watch it, but ended up buying it for him for his birthday at some point. A VHS tape. I was very proud of that purchase. But Jimmy Cagney, of course, was always known as get you dirty rat mobster, but he was really a song and dance guy, and a hell of a tap dancer, great singer. But people don't really remember that part of Jimmy Cagney. But my dad did, and that's my his favorite. But I'll circle around to like one of my. I'm guessing it's one of his favorites. I wish I had the opportunity to talk to him about it a little bit more. He was always a big fan of the Omega Man from 1971.
Oh.
And we've covered versions of the story a few times, but it was a remake by Will Smith, of course, as I Am Legend, and prior to that, it was a remake of a movie that The Last Man on Earth by Vincent Price. It was a very hippie type take on the story. It had Chuck Heston, who we love, which is just an iconic guy in that era, as this militant guy. And like the vampires were like all these like albino hippies, Mike. It was just this really dark story about, saving the world after this post-apocalyptic virus kills off the entire planet. Just a great movie. And, Chuck was the guy. He was the guy that brought those movies to us and just delivered this fantastic, iconic, epic story. Bit of a bummer ending, but just remember being really freaked out by the movie. But my dad loved that, and I think that is certainly in his top 5, if not one of his favorite movies of all time. So there you go. That was a fun ride down memory lane there, Mike.
Yeah, maybe I want to see one of these again.
Yeah,
like I said, it's just and thinking of my dad when I'm watching it.
Yes, which is always good. We're gonna have to wrap it up here, guys. But if you like what you heard for today, for some reason, don't forget to check out our Instagram page. That's at Grumpy Nostalgia. We have a YouTube channel, so maybe you can check that out. Maybe you'll be the one. We have an email address called nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com if you ever want to send us an email for a request or any other show information. Check out our website. That's grumpynostalgia.buzzsprout.com. Check it out there. Make sure you listen to our companion podcast. We have a little series going called The Remembers Only, where me and Mike do the same approach. We talk about other nostalgic things of our formative years, but not so much movies. But we talk about other things like TV and music and stuff like that. You can check that out. It's called Remembers Only. And that'll be coming out intermediate, 1 or 2 episodes a month, in addition to the regular podcast you're listening to right now. So, Mike, that's going to kind of wrap it up for tonight. Anything else you want to say to our fans before you get out of here tonight?
You chose poorly.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for tonight, guys. So, thanks for listening. So, for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
2 selfless martyrs. Jesus Christ.
That's for blasphemy.